I'm Dr. Rebels, and you're listening to the REVELSations Podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast, and let me know that you are listening. Hit the thumbs up, drop a comment, be a part of the conversation, and let's get this thing going. We're all family and friends, so please call me Rev and tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to tell an enemy that you are listening to the REVELSations Podcast. The topic of today's verse is the enemy. The enemy. Let's get into some dictionary definitions as we like to do here on the REVELSations Podcast. We're all on the same page. Enemy means a person who hates another person and tries to harm them or stop them from doing something. A person who hates or opposes another person and tries to harm them or stop them from doing something. Do you have enemies? Do you have people who hate you or oppose you and they're trying to stop you from doing something or trying to cause you harm? Are you an enemy? Are you trying to oppose or do you hate somebody and are trying to stop them from doing something or you're trying to harm them? I hope not on either case, but probably you do. You probably have an enemy. Sometimes you have enemies and you aren't even aware of the enemies. But I tend to believe that there's always an enemy lurking. There's always an enemy around. Someone who is keeping us from going higher. Someone that is harming us from doing the best for ourselves. Someone that is keeping us from doing something, keeping us from being our best. And that enemy is ourselves. That's why I called it the EneME. Me. I'm the reason, right? And if we're being honest and we look at our lives, we have circumstances and situations, and it happens to everybody. And I will be the first to say that racism exists, sexism exists, classism exists. We can't look at the world and believe that none of these things exist. They exist and they're hard to overcome. But I also believe that one of the greatest enemies we have is ourselves. I once heard that the greatest enemy is the inner me. And I tend to believe that. I look at my life and I've had a lot of crazy things happen. The people who love me knows my stories, but how much have I done? How much self-sabotaging behavior have I participated in? So that would be our next definition, to self-sabotage. Self-sabotage means to behave in a pattern where you consciously or subconsciously act in ways that hinder your own goals, happiness, or overall well-being. Wait a minute. A pattern of behavior where you consciously or subconsciously act in ways that hinder your own goals, happiness, or overall well-being. But wait a minute. Enemy is a person who opposes another person and tries to harm them or stop them from doing something. But self-sabotaging is you're acting in behaviors to where you're subconsciously or consciously hindering your own goals, happiness, or overall well-being. So if you are self-sabotaging, then you are your own enemy. So let's get to it. We all make mistakes. Everybody in the world makes mistakes. There's nobody walking this earth that is perfect. Everybody has some smudge in their ledger. You don't always say the right thing. You don't always do the right thing. But oftentimes we, for maybe circumstances out of our control, it could be things that we were taught. It could be personality dispositions that we were born with. It could be mental health issues. It could be for a variety of reasons that we end up doing things to harm ourselves. And I actually don't think it's necessarily the main thing that we do that stops us. It's not the thing that we've said or the things that we've done. It's the behavior that follows that's truly the self-sabotaging. It's for some people, after we do something bad, we try to then cover that up with drugs or alcohol or being promiscuous or whatever the drug of choice is to try to make ourselves feel better. And I actually think that's the enemy. That's doing more harm than the crime. You've heard this before. The crime is worse than the cover up. But I also believe that we end up feeling guilty. I think a lot of people feel guilty. And I know some people say, oh, they don't feel guilty at all. I believe there's some psychopaths out there, people who are willing to do whatever it takes to get what they want. But I also believe that a lot of people feel guilty and they engage in self-sabotage behavior. So guilt. Guilt is the fact of having committed a specified or implied offense or crime, right? That's guilt. Now, guilty means being responsible for a specified wrongdoing. So people know when they're when they're the reason something went wrong, or they know when they're responsible for the specified wrongdoing, and they have this guilt, and the guilt plays with their conscious, and their consciousness is the state of being aware or responsive to one's surroundings. So they are aware that they have done something wrong. And to cope or to medicate or to get over it and to not feel the guilt, to not feel being responsible, to not feel the effects of committing the crime, they begin to either self-medicate or do whatever it takes to make themselves not feel bad for the offense. But oftentimes we end up feeling worse because we are trying to cover up the offense. And as I said before, the cover up is worse than the crime. So we end up walking around with a guilty conscience. A guilty conscience, again, is feeling of guilt, worry, or unhappiness that a person experiences after doing something wrong or feeling responsible for a bad act. So they do something wrong, they feel bad for the act, and they have this guilty conscience. And that's not a good feeling to have. And oftentimes when people have that guilty conscience, they end up feeling anxious. And anxious is a feeling or showing of worry, nervousness, or unease about something with an uncertain outcome. Am I going to get caught? Is this going to work out? I put myself in this situation. I'm worried about it. Is it going to work out for me? And from there, we end up engaging in more self-sabotaging behavior. That behavior that either consciously or subconsciously acts in ways to hinder our own goals, happiness, or overall well-being. So if we wrap all that up together and we're being honest, and I know I'm not the only person that deals with that, then it is safe to say that oftentimes we are our biggest enemy. We are the person that is keeping us from being great. We are the person that is keeping us from doing things that we want to do. Is there some self-hate involved in it? Probably so. That's a different topic for a different day. But overall, I believe that oftentimes, either because of circumstances out of our control or even things that we've done, we then participate and engage in self-sabotaging behaviors, guilty behaviors, and things of that nature so that we can cope with what we're going through. And it's okay. When I say it's okay, I mean, people do it. The thing we have to do is we have to recognize it and try not to become our own biggest enemy. We have enough enemies in the world. There's enough people out there. There's enough systems out there. There's enough circumstances out there that'll try to keep us down. We shouldn't do it ourselves. So then the question I ask is why? Why do we participate in the self-sabotaging behaviors? Why do we essentially become our own worst enemy? And I think it has to do with the fact that we are not necessarily taught at an early age how to cope and how to process with our things. We have so much time on our hands to go and eat healthy and exercise. But how much time do we actually spend on our mind and our spirit? We don't. And it's not just a Black culture thing where people aren't going to therapy or anything. We have all these disturbed humans out here, and they're disturbed because they haven't had their mentals checked. They haven't necessarily gone through the proper steps. And I can't even necessarily blame them because we don't have the system set up for people to easily access mental health. It is much easier to access physical health as far as going to the gym. And I'm not saying that everybody can afford therapy, even though I believe that therapy prices are oftentimes out of control. But we can do things that are therapeutic, that will help us not be our own enemy, that will help us get rid of that guilty conscience so that we don't participate in self-sabotaging behaviors. And those self-sabotaging behaviors are directly aligned with being our own worst enemy. So let's think about it. As you go through your life and you look at your circumstances and your situations, and yes, they happen. Trust me, I would put my circumstances and situations and life into me up against almost anyone. I'm not saying I'm the worst off, but I would put it up there with the amount of things that happen. And I can't control that. But what I can control is my behaviors in response to that. And I can admit, I participated in some self-sabotaging behaviors. I've participated in some behaviors that would make me look at myself as an enemy. Would I like if someone treated me the way that I'm treating myself? Sometimes no, that wouldn't be okay. Would my loved ones like the way I'm treating myself if it was somebody else treating me that way? No. So flip it around. Ask yourself your question. Would you like, if you could separate yourself, would you like someone treating you the way you've been treating you? Would you like, or would your family and friends like, rather, how you have been treating yourself if it was somebody else treating you that way? The answer is probably no. So we need to get from those self-sabotaging behaviors. We need to get away from those enemies, and we need to find things that work for ourselves. And those things that work for ourselves should never bring us any self-harm. They should not be introducing chemicals into our body to inebriate our mind. Those things can be self-harming. I'm not talking about all medication. I'm not talking about any I don't know, even recreational drugs, but those things when they become a habit, those things when they become a crutch, those things when we can't function without them, those become self-sabotaging behaviors. And then oftentimes we feel guilty about doing the thing. Quick story. I have a family member who struggled with drug and alcohol abuse. And this family member was telling me about it. We were having a conversation. And I'm like, well, why would somebody do that? Why can't they just put the bottle down or put the drugs down? And my family member told me, well, people want to, but they can't. It goes back to the verse when I was talking about the can't versus the won't. It's not that they won't do it. It's that they can't do it for whatever the reason. They can't put it down for whatever the reason. And I begin to chew on that and say, okay, well, yeah, they can't. So they're in these self-sabotage behaviors. So what can they do to then mentally overcome the fact that they can't put it down? Because the fact that they can't put it down is harming them and keeping them from doing what they ultimately want to do, which is grow and be a better person. So they have to have the mental tools and the emotional capability of doing it. But do we have systems in place to make that happen? And everybody, again, cannot afford to go to therapy. Everybody may not feel comfortable in therapy. Everybody may not feel or have access to therapy. But I think we all have access to things that are therapeutic and that are healthily therapeutic to us. So I want to put a challenge out there to all of us. Find those therapeutic things. Find those things that bring self-peace to us and no harm to ourselves or others. None of our getting ourselves better and making ourselves healthy should ever harm ourselves or harm anybody else. I know I'm using the word should a lot, and I like to stay away from that, but I think I'm pretty safe when I say we should not be out here harming ourselves and we should not be out here harming other people. So think about it. Are you your own worst enemy? Are you your biggest enemy? Do you participate in self-sabotaging behaviors? Remember, enemy is a person who hates or opposes another person and tries to harm them or stop them from doing something. And self-sabotaging is a pattern of behaviors where you either consciously or subconsciously act in ways that hinder your own goals, happiness, or overall well-being. Those things are closely aligned. Again, I'm Dr. Rebels. Thank you for listening to the REVELSations Podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Share this with somebody and let them know you're listening. Until next time, I am because we are. Hallelujah, holla back. Peace.
Yeah, the revelations now televised. A platform for you and I. And now look with full heart and clear eyes. Now, these are just my thoughts. Truth on how I feel on these topics I reveal. Please know my toll, I always keep it real. Can't face the word if you can't face facts. For your time, just open up your mind. That's it, just live, think big, now take that. With God in me, this here was made by design. Yeah, the revelation will be televised. REVELSations.